The journey north. By the time I stepped outside, the streets were shrouded in smoke, and the neighborhood oak tree was ablaze. People were running, shouting, the air thick with panic. I clutched my heavy backpack, its contents clinking together as I hurried to my car. I knew I had to make it to the train station. This might be the last train out for a while. When I arrived at the small, rural station, I noticed a young mother holding her baby, her face weary yet determined. An older man, clearly without a home, sat nearby. I parked, slung my bag over my shoulder, and joined them on the platform just as the train pulled in. The woman sat down beside me, her child finally calming down in her arms. "This place has really gone to pieces, hasn't it?" she murmured, holding her child close. I nodded, feeling a kinship in our shared sense of urgency. "It sure has," I replied. The train doors opened, and we stepped inside, finding seats together. Across the aisle, a teenager cried silently, comforted by a boy her age. The baby drifted off to sleep in her mother's arms, the rhythmic sway of the train lulling her into peace. "What's their name?" I asked, gesturing to the baby. "Eloise," the woman replied with a small smile. "That's beautiful," I said, introducing myself as well. "I'm Taylor." She smiled back. "I'm Maggie." We talked as the train chugged along, sharing small bits of food and stories of where we'd come from. The landscape outside transformed from dry fields to lush green forests as the train carried us north, away from the fires. We shared plans to go somewhere safe, somewhere we could start over, though neither of us knew exactly where. As night fell, we arrived at a small town, and Maggie followed me when I disembarked. The air was cool, the moon casting a gentle glow over the quiet streets. We found a modest motel nearby and checked in, grateful for a moment of stillness after the chaos. In the morning, the news reported that the fires were spreading further, overtaking towns in their path. Maggie and I decided to stock up on supplies. We spent the day visiting a local market, buying diapers, food, and water. It became clear we might have to keep moving. By evening, we boarded another train, heading further north. This time, the train was crowded, but people gradually got off at various stops, and we eventually found seats together again. As the train neared our destination, we found ourselves talking about more than just the journey ahead. Maggie shared how she had been struggling on her own since Eloise was born, trying to make a life for them both. We arrived in a small mountain town and found a simple cabin for rent. The land around it was vibrant, with wildflowers dotting the field nearby. We settled in, making the bare cabin a bit more comfortable. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a safe haven. One evening, we shared a meal by the fireplace, Eloise nestled asleep in her crib. Maggie picked a wildflower and placed it in my hair, her eyes soft and grateful. In that quiet moment, under the stars, it felt as though we had found a place we could call home, at least for now. This version keeps the warmth of the original story, focusing on their journey and developing friendship, while incorporating the details requested. The days in the mountain town grew peaceful. Each morning, Maggie and I would take Eloise on a stroll along the forest trails, breathing in the fresh mountain air that was free from smoke and noise. The three of us fell into a quiet routine, finding comfort in the simplicity of our lives. As autumn settled in, the forest turned into a patchwork of reds and golds. One cool morning, we packed a small basket with snacks and hiked to a nearby clearing with a view of the mountains. Eloise toddled around, laughing as she tried to pick up leaves that were almost as big as her tiny hands. While Eloise played, Maggie and I sat on a fallen log, wrapped in a shared blanket to ward off the chill. Maggie's shoulders relaxed, and for the first time since we met, her face softened into a genuine, easy smile. "You know," she said, glancing down at her hands, "I never thought I'd find someone to share this with. It was always just me and Eloise." I nodded, understanding. I didn't expect this either, but I'm glad we're here together. It feels like we've been given a chance to start fresh. We fell silent, letting the sounds of the forest fill the air between us. Eloise brought over a handful of acorns, placing them in my lap and looking up with a toothy grin. Maggie laughed, a sound that seemed to echo through the trees, warm and full of life. As we returned to the cabin, Maggie mentioned wanting to make a home-cooked meal to celebrate our little family. We stopped by the town market to gather ingredients, and when we returned, Maggie took charge in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with a surprising ease. She hummed quietly as she cooked, and I set the table, lighting a few candles to bring a soft glow to the cozy space. That evening, we sat down to the best meal we'd had in ages. Maggie had cooked a hearty stew, the smell filling every corner of the cabin. Eloise ate happily, making a mess of her food but giggling between each spoonful. After dinner, as Eloise dozed off on the couch, Maggie and I lingered by the fire, sipping cups of tea. The glow of the flames cast warm shadows on the walls, and the room felt alive with warmth and possibility. Maggie looked at me, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Thank you, Taylor. For everything. For being here, for helping me with Eloise, for just being you." I reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just as grateful to have you both." We spent the evening talking about dreams we hadn't dared to share before. Maggie spoke of her love for painting, a passion she had let go of since becoming a mother. I confessed my desire to find a place to call my own, somewhere to plant roots and build a life with meaning. As the night deepened, a sense of peace settled over us. We both knew the world outside was uncertain, full of challenges that lay ahead. But here, in this small mountain cabin, with Maggie beside me and Eloise peacefully sleeping, I felt a rare, fragile hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, we had found a place to begin again. And in the quiet of the night, under a blanket of stars, it felt like we had finally come home. The weeks slipped by, and our little family's routines became woven into the rhythms of the mountain town. Maggie and I settled into the comfort of our companionship, building a life that was simple yet deeply fulfilling. Our days were filled with small joys, a shared meal, Eloise's laughter as she played outside, quiet evenings by the fire. But as winter approached, so did the need to prepare. The mountain weather grew colder, and the townspeople warned us of heavy snowstorms on the way. Maggie and I spent our afternoons stocking up on supplies, chopping firewood, and making sure the cabin was well insulated. Each task brought us closer, the shared purpose deepening our bond. One evening, as the first snow began to fall, Maggie and I bundled up Eloise and took her outside. She gazed up at the sky, her tiny face lit with wonder as the snowflakes drifted down, melting on her cheeks. Maggie laughed, catching a snowflake in her hand and showing it to Eloise, who reached out and tried to grab it. The snow was thick and soft, blanketing the trees and covering the cabin's roof in a layer of white. We went back inside, cheeks flushed from the cold, and settled by the fire. Maggie made hot chocolate, her own recipe from childhood. She stirred a pot on the stove, adding just a hint of cinnamon. Eloise sat in my lap, drowsy from the cold air and excitement. When Maggie handed me a warm mug, she looked at me with a smile that spoke of contentment and gratitude. Later that night, after we had put Eloise to bed, Maggie and I sat on the floor by the fire, wrapped in a quilt. The quiet of the cabin was soothing, the crackling of the fire the only sound around us. "I never thought I'd find something like this," Maggie said softly, her gaze on the flickering flames. "A place to feel safe, someone to share it with. I thought I'd have to do it all alone." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "You're not alone anymore, Maggie. We're a team now. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Her eyes met mine, and I could see a glimmer of tears. She squeezed my hand, the warmth of her touch steady and reassuring. We sat in comfortable silence, words unnecessary in the glow of that moment. Winter continued on, and with it came long, snowy days that kept us inside. We found joy in the little things, building pillow forts with Eloise, baking bread together, reading by the fire. I even started helping Maggie rediscover her passion for painting, setting up a small space near the window where she could work on canvases while Eloise played nearby. One night, as another snowstorm raged outside, Maggie surprised me with a gift, a painting of the three of us standing by the lake, with the mountains in the background. The strokes were soft, capturing the warmth we had found in each other. I felt tears break my eyes as I looked at it. "It's beautiful," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." Maggie smiled, her eyes reflecting the same emotion. "It's just a small piece of what you both mean to me." We hung the painting over the fireplace, a reminder of the life we were building together, the home we had created in the middle of uncertainty. And as winter stretched on, I knew one thing for certain: wherever the future took us, whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them side by side. Together, we had found a new beginning, one built on trust, love, and the strength of two souls who had, against all odds, found their way to each other.